Well, it is. There seems to be like an emergence of projectors wanting to learn more because we know that it's like something we know that we're here to do is be there for people.
Uh-huh.
So we're kind of looking at all these different modalities and tools and resources to help educate ourselves on how to best utilize our energy. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I specifically reached out to a few projectors I know because I'm like, yeah, I feel you. I know exactly where your head's at, where your heart's at. And we have to look at a little bit of, our strategy here. How are we going about being of service, being of purpose, and conserving our energy and living our life? So
Oh, I love that. There's
yeah.
Debbie. Hi,
Hi,
Debbie.
Debbie. I
Hi, ladies. It's so nice to see you.
Yeah, Debbie, where are you from?
Well, I live in Northeast Florida, about 90 miles or 90 minutes from Hope. So I'm just off of Jacksonville out at the beach in Ponte Vedra Beach.
Okay, so it's late for you both. Later. Yeah.
I think we're both pretty much night owls.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Good.
it's really interesting learning a little bit about this whole human design thing and, discovering what my design type, I guess is what you call it. And thinking about how the role that I had for 30 years in my career was perfect for a projector.
What did you do?
Well, I was with the health insurance company with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida, but I was a strategic planner. I was in policy, I was in budget, I was a consultant, and then I got my certification as a Six Sigma Black Belt, which is all around process improvement, making things better, being a consultant. I was asked for my opinion. I was asked to give my opinion, and people, took my advice if they wanted to or not. So as I think about what that was, it was a perfect match for a projector, honestly. I wasn't, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to ask, like, throughout that experience, did you ever feel like the bitterness, like the not self theme of bitterness? Did you ever feel that? Or were you, because when we are in alignment and we're waiting for that invitation and sharing our guidance when it's needed, we're feeling the success, right? So in that role, were you ever feeling like people weren't listening to you, so you're feeling bitter or anything like that?
Well, there was obviously oftentimes I would propose a strategy and it wasn't accepted. So that, anytime you feel that rejection, you may feel that, uncomfortable feeling like, why aren't they listening to me? I know I'm not perfect, but this is a really good solution. So yeah, you might feel that, but mostly it was just that I felt comfortable in the way that corporate role was designed. And it was it was multiple roles, within two different companies, both Blue Cross and United Healthcare.
Oh,
Yeah. So now I am in a different industry that is requiring more of an assertive approach in sharing. So it's not so much that I've been given a project or an assignment and they're asking my input and my perspectives and information. It's more I'm having to go out and share, or I'm having to go out and sell, or I'm having to. So it's, and I just saw or heard myself say, I have to do this. I have to do this. That may be a trigger right there, is that I feel like I have to do something. As opposed to letting it come to me because maybe I've done something else. I may be answering my own questions.
I think it's interesting too, though, because in probably that position like that, you're providing information and a resource for people who they may not know what they need, and I'm not sure if it's like kind of cold calling more or less, or these like hot leads where, you go to them and then share your information. But yeah, either way, it would feel a little sticky for us, I feel like, as projectors stepping into something, you know what I mean, without feeling a formal invitation. But yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's
It just feels icky sometimes.
sure. Yeah, and it's definitely, I feel like for me too, it is a little bit of a mindset thing where sometimes I feel like I'm thinking about it too much, where I'm not realizing that, people, you can help anybody if you know just a little bit more than them, right? It doesn't have to, you don't need to know everything under their sun. But if you can share one little piece of information with them and it changes their perspective or their direction on something, like that's so worth trying, right? So, well, I love it. I love that you both are here. I love that you're both projectors too. It makes me so happy. I was expecting at least a handful more people to be here, but we're a little after, and they're on East Coast time too. So I get it. People get tired at night as projectors. That's us. We might, just say, hey, I'll catch the recording when I'm feeling more energized, when I'm feeling more present. So this is being recorded. If you both are open to that, I will be sharing it online and with my community, because I do, like I said, I do have people who are interested and who couldn't make it either. So again, thanks for being here. So what today is going to look like is it's only going to be maybe half hour, 40, no longer than 40 minutes of conversation, but I have out a presentation. It's a semi-informal, so you guys can unmute, chit chat, small group. You guys know each other too, so it's really great that we can kind of dive into this a little bit more. And I just want to share some information that I've been practicing and experimenting with using human design and the Identity Center. And so you guys feel free to take notes. There are going to be some journal prompts I'll put in there that you can write down. We can even have mini discussion around it. And if there's anything particular that comes up throughout the talk here and you have a question, you can feel free to unmute, flag me down, say, hey, I wonder about this. That's totally fine. Okay, so I know I used to be really techie, but I've since distanced myself from Zoom. So I'm trying to share my screen here. Okay, let me see here how I can do this correctly. Okay, and I think I got it like this. Maybe. Okay, looks good. Okay, so welcome to the discussion here about undefinable. So when I'm using the word undefinable, generally when we speak about human design, we have defined centers and undefined centers, but this is just in general here to say that we are undefinable as human beings. We really can't put ourselves in different boxes and expect ourselves to stay there. As life changes, our roles change, as we change, our identity changes, our values change. So this is just a conversation to help kind of bring some awareness to why things might be shifting for you, or why you might be stuck in certain areas or confused about certain things, the direction you're moving in life, or really just maybe provide some validation using your human design. So the big question here when we talk about identity is, who am I? Who am I at a core? And a lot of us, we look outside of ourselves to know who we are, our roles, our routines, our jobs, things that, provide a label for us. And that is sometimes, it's helpful for the mind because it can connect us with people. It can help us understand our roles and our purpose. But sometimes those can limit us and box us in if we're too attached to what that means for us. So in general, our identity is who we are and who we are not. Our identity gives us that sense of purpose, direction, pleasure, enjoyment, and of course, connection with others in the world around us. And again, the identity piece is what the mind wants. It's our mind wanting to create parameters for ourselves and how we want to live our lives. But sometimes our soul doesn't actually want that. Our soul does not like to be restricted. So in talking about human design, like I mentioned, we have our energy centers. There are 9 energy centers, as you both are familiar with. And our identity center is the one located in the heart chakra or central of our body. And human design is really just a modality for awareness of our energy in our body. Specifically, when we talk about our identity center, so also referred to as our G center, that is our life force of purpose, our direction, and love. And so that is what's going to guide us throughout life. Again, referring back to the center of our chest, thinking about the sun. The sun is the center of the solar system. The sun is also center of our life, our heart, and then also it being a compass. So a compass in our body guiding us what to do, where to go, who to talk to, and really remind us who we are. So just some basics with human design with the identity center. Defined means that there is energy there. Okay, so defined means that there's energy there that is pretty consistent and pretty clear. So the undefined or openness of the identity center, any of the centers of the body, is that inconsistency. It's a little bit more abstract, so to say. So again, it's positioned in the center of your chest, and in that identity center, we have all of these channels and gates that move off of it that influence how we view ourselves, how we view the world, and how we interact with others and contribute to the world. With that being said, when it is open, that openness can be really, really vulnerable to the things in our environment. So again, if it's open, it doesn't have that consistent energy. So we tend to take in from the outside and amplify it. So of course, that means being very aware of what's around us, what's happening around us, who's around us, because we are going to take that on with those open centers. With it being more defined, we may not be as vulnerable and susceptible to take on other things outside of us. I listed the Jovian archive here. That is the website that you can use to pull your chart if you don't have it, but it seems like both you have. So just a little reflection piece here before we kind of talk a little bit more about the human design and identity piece. So here are just some questions. You can screenshot, take a picture, jot them down, but I'm just going to read them out and kind of just feel for yourself, maybe do a little mental checklist, and feel free to journal or write about them, talk them out later. So what roles do you identify with? I'm thinking myself specifically. I'm a daughter, a sister, occupational therapist, a friend, things like that. And then what labels give you a sense of purpose? So this can also be a big one to kind of reflect at, because we get to really see what does bring us joy. And then what labels put pressure on you? So what labels are we having to agree to or be obligated to do because of X, Y, Z, or maybe, responsibilities that we've taken on and are no longer really serving us? What labels have you outgrown? Very similar, just in a different context. And then what roles feel exciting and relevant? I really like that question, because what roles feel exciting and relevant? Because that really reminds us that we are here in the now, not back what we used to be, not what we want to be. We're here in the now. And it's great to have projections into the future about who we want to be, but we have to accept where we're at in our journey and be excited about it, see how we can support ourselves, see what kind of person we wake up and want to be that day. So it's really cool to at least reflect on that piece too. And here's just a a little caption of different roles and things that might be going on when we feel kind of pulled in different directions. And this is normal life, whether you have a defined or undefined identity center. We do wear a lot of hats regardless. I think that it again can be overwhelming with just the changes that we are experiencing in our everyday life. Now I'll move into the defined centers. This is interesting. I think, are you both undefined? Do you both have open identity centers in your chart?
My chart shows as undefined with just a one
Okay.
that is going up toward the throat. That's the only one, but it's not connected.
Okay, so the gate, yep. And
Yeah.
then,
I don't know mine.
oh, okay. I'm gonna guess that you're open just from knowing you and hearing a little bit about your story too. So this information is still really relevant because it can give us a sense of why certain people influence us. It can give us a sense of why being in certain places, in certain environments, we kind of absorb and amplify the things around us. So those with the defined identity center, they generally have the clear and consistent sense of self and direction. When they're in the correct environment, they know who they are. They have decisiveness. They generally have a good sense of, who they are, their sense of self, kind of confident. There's really no unwavering perspective of themselves relative to the undefined centers. Again, this isn't to say that people with the defined centers might not know who they are, might not have a direction, because they can still be conditioned. They're just not as easily conditioned. We all, even within any defined center, you have to be conditioned in order to, have motion, have energy move. But again, it's not as, it's more personal based versus outside world if you're open. So I just put this little picture here. That is the identity center, the G center in the human design graph or the chart, the body chart. And what you were saying there with the numbers, those are the gates going off of the center. And so when the gate is colored in, that means that expression is available in you. That expression is available. So for example, number 1 is that's the top channel, or excuse me, top gate coming off of the identity center. And that is the gate of the creative. Here it says authentic self-expression. And so just thinking about that, when we are expressing ourselves authentically, it's creative because it's different than the world around us. So that might appear in different forms. I have that too. So I think it's really interesting to kind of play with it a little bit, kind of give myself that, validation of like, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to have one way of expressing myself or one way that my creative side wants to play. And then, so we're kind of going to go around and we have the next one is the listening and forgiveness. So this channel is here to kind of be, be a shoulder for other people in ways. So we're here to kind of listen to people, here to kind of just be open to sharing that experience. 25, that is a gate that is connected to our heart center. So it is this surrender, this love of spirit and trusting the universe. So I'd say it's a little bit more spiritual connected, which is kind of, again, fun to play with, if it's connected to our identity center. So we have the world of spirituality really helping guide us along the way. We have 46, the embodiment, the love of form. This is also connected to the G center, which is, the heart center. And so then number 2, at the bottom there is another gate that is receiving and allowing. This one is, they call it the receptive. So you're here to really kind of check in with your higher self. If that gate, again, if these gates are defined, that just means you have more access to it. You have more energy in that. If they're open, that just means you're more vulnerable and maybe need to just become more compassionate with yourself around those areas. Maybe make it more of a priority for you too. So 15 is compassion and diversity. So this is kind of, again, being aware of your environment. This would be more like the Mother Teresa of the world, really kind of just being there for other people and in service. 10 is the gate of self-love. This is the love for self. And it really does kind of provide the framework for how we approach life. And finally, the 7 is the self-empowerment and supported leadership. Do you know who you are, and are you confident in the direction you're moving into? That is the gate with that. So now we'll just kind of review the Undefined Identity Center. You'll see how that these kind of they contrast. So our undefined identity centers, they have the inconsistent sense of self, love, and direction. So what that means in my perspective, from my experience too, is that I seem to be all in and all involved in something until I'm not. And then I'm like, okay, that was fun. What was that? What happened? And, it gets frustrating. And I think that's one of the big things I wanted to communicate today was that, if we have those undefined identity centers, that we really need to offer ourselves a lot of compassion, and we really need to be, selective with how and who we spend our energy with. So, let's see. So yes, when in correct environments, we who have those undefined identity centers might feel more motivated when we're around people. We might feel motivated to do something or be someone. And we know when we're out of alignment, when we constantly are searching for that. We're constantly looking for love. We're constantly looking for direction. We have this almost desperarity around it. And that is when we are acting in they call it the not self, or our conditioned self, to really, try to find that purpose, try to fill that void when we're not meant to do that. We actually have that openness, right? So we're here to be fluid. We're here to really be influenced by our environments and let that guide us. Let that show us who and how we're supposed to be. So again, we are very influenced by the world around us, and people with the open identity centers tend to question and doubt themselves. There's some judgment, maybe some shame and some guilt. They can connect and relate really well to others because of that purpose of our openness. We are able to take in someone else's persona, be like, yeah, hey, I see you. I know what you're doing. I can do that too. I can be here and support you. The problem is when we get involved too much, or we commit to things too much, when we aren't meant to box ourselves in. So again, people with the undefined identity centers, you might jump around in different careers. You might, and even in relationships, and you might lose yourself. I don't know, I've had experiences before where I've maybe had a partner who was dating for a while, and we hung out with some friends, and later he said to me, you act differently around them. And I was like, oh, I didn't notice, because I just assume, I assume the energy, I assume the persona of that group. And it's different from when it's just me and my partner. And again, it wasn't a bad thing. It was just something that he pointed out, which back then, not knowing human design, I took as, me not being authentic. And I felt guilty for, I was like, I don't know how I acted different, because it's something that I didn't have awareness of that yet. And I feel like I had one more thing I wanted. Oh, so this is neat. I actually was listening to a podcast the other day, and it had a really great explanation about the two. So your defined and undefined centers, not an analogy. And so think about it like this. If you're floating on a river in a tube, and all of a sudden you get caught in the side, and it's swirling around, and then all of a sudden you get pushed back into the center of the river, and you keep floating. You're going in the same river, the same path, yet you might just kind of get bumped around a little bit. Think of that as your defined identity centers. They're on one river, floating down the river, and they're they're not getting out off that river. They just might be pushed some side to side, but they're still staying on that path. On the other hand, your undefined identity centers are going to see you floating down. Hey, that looks fun. Let me join you for a little bit. Hops in their river on their own inner tube, bumps and swirls around. All of a sudden they get tired and bored of it. So they get out and trudge along the woods until they see another river. Then they say, hey, that one looks fun. Let's try. They jump on their inner tube in that one for a little bit till they bounce around, they get bored. So that was kind of neat. When I heard that, I got thinking, I was like, I see, that's how I'm supposed to be living my life. I'm not really, as an undefined identity center, not really meant to stay in one river, here kind of trudge around, check things out and get curious. Okay, so we talked a lot about the things that condition us or influence us. So what is that? Who are the people? What are the things that condition our identity center, condition the direction and movement we're supposed to go in? That is our environment. Number one, I'll start there. Our environment, we know about this. If we're around unhealthy, toxic, heavy, stressful situations, we're gonna take in and amplify that energy. So just to, again, ask that question, how does your environment play a role in your identity? And this could be the environment at home. Are you mom? Are you housekeeper? Are you laundry lady? The dinner, you make the dinners, the meal lady, do the grocery shopping? Or at work, are you the, consultant for your friends who's having a divorce or this and that? You can go on and create whatever you want. But it's, again, looking at the environment that is shaping you, that is influencing you. So it's these people, the projects, the culture. Culture is a big one. And then the sensations, the subtle energies that are in our environment. And whatever that is, everything in the outside goes in through our body, through the sensory system, and in through our bodies, or into our bodies, and then up to our mind. And our mind is taking in all this info, and it's trying to make sense of it. It's trying to create concepts so we can relate and connect to it. And that is the identity piece. It's, again, filtering all of this information. Okay, what does that mean? What does that make for me? How do I fit in here? Okay. And I'm just going to say, if this happens to, because I only did the 40-minute plan here. So if it does cut us off in like 10 minutes to say, use this, I might have to send a new link. We'll see where we get at. I don't think there's too many more slides here. Okay. So again, we'll go back to the people, how do they play a role in our identity? How are we in our relationships? Are we the, people pleasing girlfriend or wife or whatever? What are the expectations that these people have over us? What are our obligations, occupations, and roles? And again, it's these personal connections that our identity center likes. It likes that, likes to feel connected, be in unison with others, because that's what makes the mind feel safe. It's what makes the mind feel like it has community. So the goal here is to be with the correct influences, regardless of if you have an open or undefined identity center or if you have a defined center. We are here to be around the correct people and in the correct places. So yes, I think the big thing here is what I want to talk about with this next slide are just symptoms of the unaware openness or the conditioning that we might fall into with our identity, with our purpose, with our love for ourselves. So because we are super vulnerable to the environments, they may not always have the best influence on our health and our well-being. And when this happens, when we don't have the correct environment, we might be feeling just lost and confused. And we might start looking outside of ourselves to have goals, to have ambitions, to do this, to look like that person, to be as successful as this person. And then we start comparing ourselves to them. And then we start judging ourselves. We might have that, not worthiness, not feeling loved, not feeling useful, or have a purpose. And so this can lead to the confusion, and it can lead to depression because we're not really sure what we're doing here. And it could lead us to maladaptive coping behaviors. A lot of times those would look like binge drinking, binge eating, food addictions, any addictions, alcoholism, or even, I'm trying to think, just really the low self-esteem, any type of low self-esteem, reactive behavior. And we might end up choosing, just trying to make sense of our lives and choosing to live out someone else's dream or vision because we don't know what else we're supposed to be doing. So yeah, the people pleasing and chasing credentials, trying to make ourselves fit into a box, make ourselves feel worthy, make ourselves have an identity or a label to give us that purpose and the direction. So I just put this picture up of me. This is back in 2015, 7 years ago, where I was an unaware Molly, very much out people pleasing, very, very critical of myself, very much in search, just trying. I was moving a lot. I had a job as a traveling therapist, and I didn't really have a lot of friends in the places I was working because I was always moving. And so I became kind of, I felt bad. I felt bad about myself. There was a lot of things that I just did not understand why my job wasn't making me fulfilled. I wasn't connecting well with people. I wasn't putting myself out there, or I just was resorting to some unhealthy behaviors and really didn't understand why I felt that way. And so another thing with the openness in our charts, or just in general, is that these leave us very vulnerable to the world, leaves us very vulnerable to sensations or to situations that are hard. Again, we're here and we're conditioned and we aren't sure of what's ours, what direction to move in. We're looking outward, and when the answers aren't there, we can fall back into habits or patterns or relationships just for the sake of having something. So when those types of things happen, when you're wondering, why does this keep happening to me? These are the questions we need to ask. Again, what may this be trying to teach me? Is there something here I need to break, accept, and grow from? And what is the wisdom from this experience? Now, this doesn't have to be exclusive to Identity Center. This is in general for us to consider why we keep getting hung up on certain things, or why we're fixated on a certain goal and following through with things if they are no longer in alignment. So our Identity Center, final thoughts here. Be unapologetically passionate, bright, and enthusiastic. That you guys, they are our people who give us the direction. They are the ones that help provide us with motivation. So we may take in their identity, our openness might take in their identity. And when we're over it and we're done, we want to hop on a different river. Defined centers don't take it personally. Continue to follow on your path. And if you get hung up, if there's uncertainty about who you are, where you're going, just always go back to your why and take that time to reflect on yourself, and don't feel pressured by other people in your environment who might want to tell you what to do, even though in your soul, in that identity center, in that sun center of your heart, you know where you're headed. So welcome in others on your journey as well, because again, you're here to have people jump in your river, play for a little bit, and let them go. Final thoughts for our Undefined Identity Center. Be aware, free, and interchangeable, not for the cost of your health or well-being. So accept your openness. Notice where you are absorbing other people's vision, directions, and identities. Spend some time alone to reflect. Practice self-acceptance and forgiveness. Develop non-attachment to identities and outcomes. And find the right, correct environments that allow you to be flexible and fluid. And lastly, love yourself. So those gates off the identity center, regardless if they're colored in or not, following these types of practices, really giving yourself that compassion, that validation, that it's okay. It's okay if you're hopping along different rivers for a while. And it's okay if you feel intimidated by other people who might have a solid identity or might have that defined identity center. And just know that that's not your path. That's not how you're meant to be in this world, because you're meant to have different experiences. That's all that's all it means. And one last thing, undefined identity centers, this is you. Give yourself permission to be fluid. Know that you are sensitive to take on what is not yours. So practice discernment. And then our defined centers, lean into your direction. Don't second guess yourself or let other people tell you what or how to do things. And then we're at the closing here. So yeah, we have about a minute or so, guys. If you want to share your thoughts or if you have questions, I really appreciate you both for being here. I'll go back to the regular screen here.
Yeah, I'll just say that that was very enlightening, and thank you so much for putting together that presentation. Being undefined in that identity center, yeah, I've often felt like I will morph, would be my word, when I go between my friend groups. So if I'm in symphony, I have not that I have a different personality, but I will have a persona in that group. Or if I'm in choir, or if I'm working, the business, I put my business hat on. And those groups are all very distinct. They don't necessarily blend together. So when they do blend together, it's very interesting as I shift within that, if I have any of these people overlapping, say at a party or something. So that's very interesting. I appreciate all of those little tips there, Molly.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think it's